What's going on, my friends? Hope everyone's doing awesome. Shout out to me in chat. Come say hello. It's Friday. The day has come. The weekend has come. I'm looking forward to it. My family's been on a long bike ride this whole week, and they've gone like 185 miles all through like West Virginia into Maryland, down into DC. Really, really cool trip. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go, but they've been sending me pictures, and they're coming back tomorrow. So I'm excited to see the family. It's going to be good. I have been busy with some awesome stuff going on, including some cyberfoxing. Man, I am in my second week at Cyberfox, and it is the coolest. What a great company. So much energy. Great things happening. If you're an MSP and you're trying to solve for identity management, privileged access management, which you've got to, by the way, you got to reach out to us and let us show you what we got going on. We got some amazing things cooking. Roadmap looks really fun and awesome. And man, just the sky's the limit. So I'm really excited about that. Tristan checking in. What's up, Wes? Trying to spend some time this weekend outside, even though the heat is killer in Texas. I hear you, brother. Here in Tampa, it's also getting hot. Today, we actually did a team outage at Cyberfox. You'll probably see it blowing up on LinkedIn if you follow us. We did a kayak trip, and it was super fun. So we all get out there on kayaks, and we're going through like by the Riverwalk in downtown Tampa. And like 15 minutes in, we're like, man, it's freaking hot. It's way too hot for us. So we went under a bridge and just chilled there all for a while. It was super fun. But yeah, it's getting hot. Hopefully you're going to fire up that Smoker Texas style, Tristan. Everyone else that's listening, check in. I see you there. Maybe you're like working and listening at the same time, but come back to your keyboard for a minute. Shout out to me. Let me know what's going on. We've got some big news in cyber today. I'm going to get a little heated, actually. I'm actually going to share some opinions that really kind of frustrate me. I'm going to call somebody out. I'm normally a pretty nice guy. But look, when you attack my fellow IT people, things aren't going to go well for you. I'm going to share what I'm talking about here in a minute. We're also going to talk about some other news that's happening with ChatGPT. There's some new Russian bad guys that are back on the scenes again. We're going to talk about that as well, and what I think we're going to see in 2023. I typically try to be an optimistic CISO, but in this case, I got to admit, I'm getting worried for 2023 and 2024 in terms of cybersecurity, and I'll explain why that is in this live stream. So thanks for joining me today. It's Friday. Let's have some fun. Let's jump right in. So the very first thing we're going to cover today is this bad boy right here. And oh, this makes me mad, guys. It really, really does. And you're going to see why really quickly as we get into this. So this comes in from CBS News, Minnesota, I guess is what we say. And, hey, here it is. Massive cyber attack on Minneapolis public schools. That's not good, right? I mean, we can all agree, massive cyber attack, public schools, especially for like a large Minnesota school district. That's bad. We all agree that's bad. Now, first of all, before I say anything more about why this article really miffs me, let me say this. School systems in particular are struggling with security, and I mean struggling. They are what we call in the insurance industry a hard to place industry, or hard to place. And what we mean by that is literally just this. You guys have been hit by too much stuff, and you're really hard for us to find a carrier willing to take the journey with you. That's the truth. That's the ultimate truth of what's going on here. I'm fixing my camera a little bit. That's the ultimate truth. And why is it that way? Well, school systems in particular have some challenges because they don't have the budgets that everyone else has. And they have sprawl everywhere. Right? They have machines and endpoints everywhere. They have an open environment. A lot of school systems aren't doing what's necessary to lock machines down and get rid of local admin privileges. By the way, it's what we do at Cyberfox. Reach out to us. Be happy to help you on that. And also they have political challenges because they have unions. Almost every school system has a teachers union. And I'm not speaking bad about unions, but I am saying the teachers unions are not always friendly to cybersecurity. They'll say things like, no, you're not going to train our teachers. They don't have time for that. They're not going to be paid for it. We're not doing that. So they just have a lot of problems, school systems do. And I know this because when I was at Fifth Wall, I spent a ton of time talking to school systems and helping them navigate the cybersecurity waters. And let me tell you, it ain't easy and it's kind of tough. So here's a school system that got smacked. Aaron checking out. What's going on, Aaron? Feel like I should leave now before I get called out? No, my friend, I am never calling you out. Never, never, never. You're too awesome for me to call out. All right, so let's dive into what we see here, okay? So it was known then, but it's even more apparent now. The ransomware attack against the Minneapolis public schools was massive. Mark Lanterman. All right, this is my guy, Mark Lanterman. I got issues with you, Mark. I really do. Former member of the U.S. Secret Service, ECTF, the Electronic Crimes Task Force, described it as a worst case scenario and confirmed that highly sensitive information, including campus blueprints, alarm schematics, and the placement of surveillance cameras were all among the documents stolen. Now, the way that's written, it makes it sound like it's intentional, right? Like there's some kind of physical event that's going to happen in the school and they're stealing like surveillance camera placement. But no, they just stole everything. And so part of this news article, they're just sort of trying to make it as, just as disastrous as possible, right? School systems are fun to pwn. I agree. Who said that? Oh, that's my friend Nate Curry. Nate, thanks for joining, man. If you guys don't know Nate Curry, go follow him here on LinkedIn. He's awesome. He is a pen tester, and so he knows what he's talking about when it comes to all this. I've known Nate since his college days. What an awesome person Nate is. So thanks for joining, Nate. And he's right. School systems are weak, right? So yes, everything got stolen, including placement of surveillance cameras. Don't think that this is like some imminent physical attack that's happening. I don't think that's the case at all. They're writing it in such a way to make it rough. But let me show you what really angers me out of this article. This is not helpful to anybody. This Mark Lanterman. My advice to the school system: get new IT staff because someone fell asleep at the wheel during this event, he said bluntly. Oh, this really angers me. So here's the thing that just really frustrates me is when people do this, and he should know better, right? Being somebody former Secret Service or ECTF, shame on you, Mark. You should know better and you should be better than this. We don't just fire IT staff because we had a breach. Now, I recognize this is a massive breach. Literally everything was stolen. Thousands of data was stolen. I get it. And this thing happened and it was weeks before it was notified. It wasn't handled well. Yeah, no, it wasn't. I agree. But that doesn't mean that we just knee-jerk to firing somebody, Mark. Like, here's the thing about IT that most people don't recognize, and I'm just going to take your side for a minute, you IT folks that are watching this today, is I know that you are underserved, you are understaffed, and you are under budgeted. I know that because I see it every single day, especially school systems. So this is one of these cases where old Mark is jumping to, let's just fire the IT people because we get new IT people and it's going to fix all the problems. No, what do you expect? Do you think these IT people are like magic wizards that are like building their own tools from scratch? And if we just get better IT people in, that we won't have this breach happen? Of course not. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Now, hear me, tools don't stop breaches, okay? They just don't. They augment security programs, yes, but they don't stop breaches. But also, we don't just fire people because we had a breach, in the sense of, look, I get it. There are times that you may have to fire someone for gross negligence. But in this case, I'm willing to bet, instead of just knee-jerking to we should fire everybody, Mark, we should probably take a look at ourselves and say, what's happening in this school system that led to this happening? And I can promise you, based on my knowledge of talking to school systems, which apparently Mark does not, let me give you some input as I led into this live stream. Schools don't have the budgets. Things like EDR they're not a must-have. It's a nice-to-have for them. Would they love to put Huntress in? They would love to. But can they afford it? Probably not. Not because Huntress is too expensive, but because they don't have the budget for it. They're not doing things like security awareness training. And I would wager to say that this breach probably happened not because of some 0 day, but because a teacher was the one that clicked on something. So, Mark, are we going to fire that teacher too? I mean, if we're going to follow your logic, we might as well fire everybody that caused this thing to happen, including the teacher that clicked on something. You see what I mean here? Like, we don't just knee-jerk to just, well, who do I fire now that this security thing happened? No. We find out what led to this happening, And what do we need to do to fix it? And I'll tell you, it comes down typically to two things. It comes down to support from the board of understanding this security stuff is important. How many more school systems do we have that get smacked by something upside the head and ransomware everywhere? And now the school is literally out of service for days, if not weeks. Like literally kids aren't coming into school for weeks. And what does that mean? That means a lot of these kids that are eating school lunches are going hungry because of this. Did you recognize that? That like now we have kids physically suffering because of a cyber attack. That's a real thing. That happens in literally every school system in America. It's a shame. So when schools aren't open, things aren't good for anybody. All right. So the first thing that we need is support from you. We need you to come to us and say, can we talk about this security thing? Can we talk about the resources you have right now? And can we talk about what you're missing? The second thing that they need is obvious: money. They need a better budget. So often I talk to school systems and I talk to the local IT people, and they don't have things rolled out like privileged access management, like EDR, like security awareness training, like MFA rolled out to everybody. Just the basics. They don't have it because the money is not there. And they're juggling an open environment where everyone's bringing in their iPads and teachers can kind of do what they want. It's not like a bank or healthcare where we can really lock things down. They're in just a difficult environment. Okay. So I just get frustrated when people like this Mark guy who come in purporting to be this cyber expert come in and say, well, what we should do, my advice is let's fire the IT staff because they fell asleep at the wheel. No, that's not the advice. The advice should be this: why don't we look and see where this failure came from and how we could address this? Because it's probably coming down to support and resources are the two things that we're lacking. That's the real issue here. Now, how do we go about addressing this as school systems? First of all, you've got to wake up and understand these systems are being hit, school systems being hit left and right. To quote my friend, Mr. Curry, once again, look what he said right here. Yep, schools don't have educational programs where they're taught about things like phishing links either, which is basic. We should have cyber hygiene taught at a basic level. We really should, right? So, and Aaron checking in here. I got to keep calling you AA, Ron, because you're the one that named yourself that in LinkedIn. I love it. Priorities are politics. That's the game of the board, and guys like Mark driving the policy and the agenda. Yeah, that's right. So here's my issue here with all of this is I just really dislike when people attack the IT people from the result of the breach. Most of the time, it's not that. Now, I understand there are IT people that are lazy, that don't understand security. That's different. Or that they just don't have the budget. So what are they supposed to do? And the reality is a lot of IT people at smaller companies are literally praying to when they go to bed every night, like, please don't let something happen to us because I don't know what we would do. Like, I don't know how we would stop it from the first place. I don't know how we would detect it. And I certainly don't know how I'd respond to it. And if I had the money, maybe I could start focusing on that. I could get some training and I could learn. But school systems just don't have that capability. So how many more are we going to have happen where this occurs? We don't just fire IT staff because it happens. So here's another way that I think a lot of school systems can handle this. In my opinion, they need to go find an MSP. Now that might sound radical, but I'm actually I have made a LinkedIn post about this. I'm recommending this now when I talk to school systems. And I say, hey, look, do you have an MSP? And they're like, no, why? I'm like, it's not about them replacing your IT. Like, you have IT staff inside, like, let them do what they're doing. They're doing a lot of great stuff. They're keeping the Wi-Fi going. They're keeping iPads there. They're, hitting trouble tickets and internet outages and all the stuff the IT people are worried about. But here's the reality. Your IT people, like this school system in Minnesota, are overwhelmed. They can't handle the security aspect. There's just one of them. Here's the awesome thing about an MSP. You find the right MSP with mature cybersecurity controls, and they do something they call co-managed security. So what they're saying is like, look, we're not here to take your IT away. Keep doing that. We're here to deliver IT security services. We're going to implement EDR. We're going to lock your machines down with configurations and best practice. We're going to start phishing campaigns. We're going to pull admin rights away. And we're going to have a just-in-time system like a CyberFox to be able to address that. We're going to put these things in place for you to really help move you forward. It's going to be at a monthly fee that's based on the size of your school. And so now you can budget for this. It's not going to be something that like this month it's a little and that's this month it's a lot. It's something that's stable and budgeted. This is what you need to do as a school system. I'm not saying you change anything. You certainly don't go fire your IT staff. You augment them and give them what they need so that they can be successful. And a good MSP can help you do that. So I really think that's what we need to see happen. And I'm seeing more and more MSPs really start to take the reins on this and say, yes, we're all about this. We do have a cybersecurity practice where we can offer this for mid-sized companies and school systems that have IT and don't want to replace that, but they do need to bring security help in because security is different than IT, period. And it requires dedication and it requires focus. And 99% of organizations that are out there don't have those resources to do it. So look for an MSP that can bring that in. Whew. My goodness, that one gets me really spun up. I really do get mad when I see people calling to fire the IT people, just knee jerk. Maybe those people do need to be fired, but we don't have the information yet to do that. And I would say before we fire anybody, we should really be talking about maybe a good, honest conversation with the board for the school system to reanalyze all of this. Okay, so let's get into some more news. Here's one that just it doesn't really bother me, but I'm seeing it pop up all and more, is AI is everywhere now, right? Like once ChatGPT took off, it's not like ChatGPT was the very first like consumerized AI that's out there, right? We've seen AI for quite some time, and AI as a whole is just such a generic term that we could argue a lot of things are AI. But once it got into the common person's hands and anyone could just log into OpenAI and ChatGPT and type something and it came up these amazing results, it took the world by storm, right? It was the fastest growing platform. They got to 1 million users in less than a month, way faster than Instagram, way faster than any of these other platforms that are out there. It just blew up like wildfire. So of course, you're going to see all the Me Too's. And a lot of the Me Too's that are out there are literally just using ChatGPT via API to do some things. Even here in the MSP space, we've seen some tools come out like, look at us, we're so innovative. And really all you did was you just integrated ChatGPT. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but I'm just saying we see a lot of marketing that comes with all of this, right? And so I think one thing that just came out today I thought was pretty interesting is this comes in from Al Jazeera. ChatGPT makes its debut as a smartphone app on iPhone. So now for the very first time, it's right. You can just install it from the App Store, just right here on your phone. It's that easy. And so what it's doing is it's taking this away from like all of these other chatbots that are out there and everyone trying to compete with all of this. I thought that's pretty interesting, right? Could be good news for people who like to use the artificial Intel chatbot, and bad news for all the clone apps that have tried to profit off the technology, right? So, we've seen this, right? We've seen all of these tons of like AI, coming out. They even described it, Sophos described it as fleeceware, right? And the thing is, like people like you and me that are watching this, we know that it's fleeceware. We see all these like AI driven whatevers and we're like, yeah, that's just fleeceware, right? Or like all these like image apps that are just using Dolly on the back end and then giving you the image. It's like, I could just cut out the middleman, just do it myself, right? So it's good to see this hit the iPhone app just natively on iPhone or Android, because it just puts more accessibility here. And, the security implications of this, I think, are there too, right? Because as people are really getting excited about AI and they really are starting to see how it could transform some of their businesses, they're going to be more willing to go and look for and install apps and services and browser plugins and sign up to websites to get access to all this game-changing AI technology. It's everywhere, right? There's so much of it. That's just, it's you see it everywhere you look. And a lot of it is nothing special. And some of it could even be malware that's sort of like hidden behind the scenes and literally just gobbling up your data and doing all kinds of nefarious things with it. We've also seen examples of like AI-driven browser toolbar plugins that are actually just malicious plugins that are looking at all your internet traffic and injecting stuff in. So what's the message here? The message is, I think it's good to see ChatGPT putting this out on their own, but it's also, I think, really good to see the fact that, we need to educate our users on how to go about doing this in a safe, secure manner, right? With all this AI stuff, because it's just notorious. It's everywhere. All right. Last thing I wanted to share. Timothy Duncan checking in. Awesome. He's camping out. That's going to be pretty awesome. Can't go wrong with that. Hopefully you're going to do it somewhere not Tampa, where I live, where it's like ridiculously hot. That should be a lot of fun. Camping out is always a good time. But I'm kind of like a bougie camper now. The older I get, like I'm not going to sleep in a sleeping bag on like the ground and roll out, that little foam thing. Like I'm like, no, I got to have a full cot. We got these Amazon cots that have like these like inflatable air things. So like the cot's like nice and long. It's kind of like, curved, and it's almost like you're sleeping on like a air mattress, but like with little small bubbles. So it's really awesome. So like if I'm going to camp outside, I'm going to do it bougie style for sure. Or even more, get an RV, baby. That's the way to go. But camping's awesome. Being outside is awesome. So I'm glad. I'm happy for you. Okay. So one of the things I also told you at the beginning of the live stream is that I'm a little pessimistic on what 2023, the end of it, and 2024 is going to look like. I'm not saying I'm Nostradamus here or anything like that, but I am saying that we're starting to see a shift in what's happening around us. So if you've been paying attention to the kind of the threat landscape circles for a while, we've seen a huge reduction in cyber attacks. Even though I just opened with this school system, they are still happening. As a whole, macro level, we're seeing less. And there's reasons we're seeing less. One of those reasons that we're seeing less is what's happening with the conflict in Ukraine. When you have a war that's occurring over there, you have naturally a cyber element that is coming with it. Now, what have we known prior to the conflict? We know that most of what we call the e-crime actors, the electronic ones, the ones that are going after financially motivated crime, most of them are operating out of Russia and Ukraine. That's true. There are other countries too, but Russia and Ukraine, that's number one and number two. So when you have an actual physical kinetic war, now you see the shift of their cyber adversaries going against each other, not to like ransom each other, but to literally shut systems down. And so there's been a new focus for these guys. And that's been one of the main causes and lead-ins to a reduction in cybercrime. So that's a good thing, but I think it's a temporary reprieve. And I've been saying that for quite some time. Let me show you an example of what we might start to be seeing happen. Okay. So this comes in from Bleeping Computer, just came in today. Microsoft is covering that the notorious Fin7 hackers returned to CLOP ransomware attacks. So they're back at it again. So Fin7 is the Microsoft designated name, and others too call them Fin7. This is a Russian-based threat actor. And they're using a software called CLOP. It's the ransomware variant that they're using. So scroll down a little bit more. A financially motivated cyber criminal group known as Fin7 resurfaced last month with Microsoft threat analysts linking it to attacks where the end goal was the deployment of CLOP ransomware payloads. So they're just ransomware threat actor. Financially motivated criminal group Sangria Tempest, also Fin7. So if you're not a nerd, all the threat intel companies that are out there all love to have their own naming conventions. So you'll see them named like Sangria Tempest, Fin7, Elbrus, right? These are all names for the same. We just haven't unified the naming conventions. It's a little aggravating for sure. In the IT world, we're so good typically at trying to like unify a common language and a common taxonomy for things, right? A hard drive means something, RAM means something, a monitor means something, LCD versus CRT means something, right? In this world, unfortunately, everyone's going to have their own name. It's kind of frustrating. It makes it difficult. But anyway, Fin7 is who we're talking about. That's the name I'm going to use today. So going back to this, Fin7 has come out of a long period of inactivity. The group was observed deploying CLOP ransomware and opportunistic attacks as recently as last month. Its first campaign since late 2021. So they're using PowerShell. I'm not going to get into like all of the details around this. Someone like Nate Curry certainly could, who's listening today. Power Trash, all this kind of stuff, the way that works. But my point to this is that these guys follow a long train of they go from one outfit to the next. You even see this down here. The group was previously linked to Revil, who they themselves were linked to GandCrab, one of the very first major ransomware outfits that operated at scale that attacked MSPs and that had an affiliate model. So these guys, it's sort of like if you've seen Princess Bride, you have the Dread Pirate Roberts and it's Wesley, and Wesley's talking to the princess and he's like, well, I'm not the original Princess or Dread Pirate Roberts either. If there was an original one before him, and there's actually one before him, no one fears the Dread Pirate Wesley, right? So this idea of like they all come from each other. They're all sort of this inbred group of people that just spin up new names, but they all are kind of the same threat actor, right? They're not the same threat actor, but they all come from very similar family histories, right? They will sometimes shut one down and then recreate a new one. That's kind of how these guys work, right? So why is this important here? Well, it's important because even though there were some arrests for some of the Fin 7 guys and some of them were caught, they've now resurfaced. And this really points back to what I think we're seeing is a resurgence in ransomware attacks are going to pick back up. Yes, we saw a reduction. I think a lot of the physical conflict in Ukraine has caused that reduction, but we're going to see a pickup. And let me prove to you that we're seeing this indeed. If we look right here, this comes from Fitch Ratings. Fitch tracks a lot of the cyber insurance data that's happening around the world and kind of aggregates it together. Take a look at this. If we look at this data right here, there's a few things that really stand out. First of all, notice this green right here. This is like directly written premiums. This is the cost. This is like how much insurance has like how much the price increases and how much has been written. So we've noticed that we've seen a drastic increase across the board here. But one thing that we also see, I'm zooming out again so you can kind of see the rest of this. Notice that not only did 2020 and 2021 see huge growths in cyber insurance premiums, it's getting much more expensive. We also see that loss ratios, you see this blue line, loss ratios blew up. In 2020, it was all-time bad in the middle of the pandemic, as high as 72% on average. So some were even as high as 100%. In other words, the loss ratio is a very simple metric. It's basically this. A loss ratio is for every dollar that I bring in, how many pennies go out the back door in terms of losses, right? So a good loss ratio should be 15%, 1.5. Well, we saw immensely high loss ratios, like 70%. Last year, or I guess 2 years ago, 2021, it wasn't any much better. It was still in the high 60s. So in other words, the carriers are they're just getting handed to them, right? Like losses like crazy. They're not profitable and things are not working. They've issued out all these policies and everyone's being hit by stuff. It's proof that like cyber insurance they thought was easy. It's much more difficult than they thought and just losses galore. But what's interesting is, and we had predicted this at Fifth Wall, that we would see a reduction in loss ratios, but we did not predict, and nobody predicted this level of a reduction. So it went down from about 60-ish percent, 60, 62%, way down here to about 42%, 43%. So a huge reduction in losses. Now, what does that reduction in losses mean? It means this. It means that from the carrier perspective, there were not as many claims being made and the damage of those claims were not as bad. And again, I think a lot of this comes back to two things. It comes back to the conflict in Ukraine, and Russia's and Ukraine's eyes are elsewhere. But it also comes to, I think we can demonstratively say that the requirements that cyber insurance has been pushing in the past year are working. The carriers are not going to take a bad risk. And so they're requiring you to have things like MFA everywhere, EDR, especially managed EDR, things like identity and privileged access management, like what we do, security awareness training, making sure you have that in place. All these things need to be in place. The carriers now like, look, if you don't have these baseline set of standards in place, we're not taking this journey with you. We're not taking that risk. No way. And so I think that's also a reason for those loss ratios coming down. But here's the deal, my friends. I want to come back to this article, Fin 7 picking back up again. I'm not necessarily scared of Fin 7 as a whole. It's less about like Fin 7 themselves. And it's more about we are going to see a resurgence of some of these threat actor groups that have shut down and that are focused on internal stuff in the physical conflict. We're now starting to see a shift and they're going to come back again and resurge and come back out. And it's less about cyber warfare and it's more about financially motivated crime. We're going to see a pickup in that again. And I think as soon as the conflict comes down, and hear me, I hope the conflict, because physical lives are more important than anything, I hope that happens as soon as possible. I hope the conflict ends now. But when it does end, we're going to see a pickup again in cybercrime. We just are. Lauren asking if I can share that source, which I'm not sure which source you're talking about. I'm not sure if you're talking about the Fitch source or not. But what I'll do is after this live stream, I'll put a link into it. The easiest way, though, that you can find it is just search like Fitch ratings, and then you can literally just type in this title, U.S. cyber insurers see favorable premium growth. It should come right up. It's like a headline link for me. It's easy to find. Or just DM me, and I can get it over to you, Lauren. Thanks for attending, by the way. It's awesome to have you on. So there you are. There's kind of like some of the big news stories that we've seen over the past like few days. And tell you, I think there's some pretty interesting stuff that's going on here. And yeah, so the insurance curves, there you go. So you'll have it there. Just DM me if you can't find it, Lauren. But I just wanted to cover some of the stuff that's happening around the scene here and just kind of pull it back in for MSPs. How do we make some of this relevant? How do we join some of this into our conversations? So I hope that's helpful to you. And if anything else, if I can ever help you in any way, definitely reach out. Let me know. By the way, a couple other things you can do for me. One thing is I now have something awesome. I have a newsletter that I've just created, and it's called the Empath Cyber Power Up newsletter. And I'm going to show it to you if you want to get access to it. So if you go right here to this website, it's empathcyber.com/powerup. And it'll take you right here. You can sign up to my newsletter. I'd love to have you in there. The Empath Cyber Power Up Cyber newsletter is all about helping MSPs in their growth. So I'm providing you awesome stuff. I'm about to drop my next email out to my list here in a couple of hours. And what I'm going to be coming out with is we did a webinar last week. I'm going to give you a link to that webinar. And that webinar was me, Kyle Christensen, and Alex Farling, two brilliantly smart people, much smarter than me. And we talked about MSPs, where they should be at in their security program according to the revenue. In other words, what is like a $1 million MSP? What does that look like for them? What should they be focusing on? What about a 2 million? What about 3? What about 5? What about 10? What about 25? What about 100 million MSP? Where does their security program focus? Where are they starting to get into? Where are their pain points and struggles? So we unpacked a lot of that. And so in the newsletter, I'm giving you a link to that webinar if you'd like to see it. And the second thing I'm giving you completely for free is access to the actual image itself. Now, these revenue lines, we're going to continue to tweak them over the next year. So when you see it, if you disagree with some things, no worries. Give me some feedback on why you think it's different for you. And I would love to hear. Oh, by the way, Lauren shared that link in. Thank you for sharing that out, Lauren. Appreciate that. It's going to be a living document. So we're going to continue to work on that. So also in the Power Up newsletter, we're talking about all things MSPs need to know around security. So going to be curating things for you on a weekly basis so you can have access to that. So definitely check that out. If you haven't already subscribed, completely free. Here it is, empathcyber.com/powerup. And it'll take you right there into it. Can't wait to have you into the newsletter and can't wait to have you into the ecosystem. All right, friends, that's all I got for you today. If anyone has any questions, fire them out into the stream. I'd be happy to answer or give you any feedback or thoughts. If you do, I'm going to hang out for just another minute or two while we wait. But yeah, I hope everyone has an awesome weekend. I'm excited for my family to be coming back. That's going to be a good thing. We may go hit the water tomorrow too. That would also be a good thing. Man, now that the weather is getting really warm, it's nice to either be inside in Tampa or on the water. That's kind of like the only two ways I know to do it. So I'm looking forward to that. But man, this has been a really fun live stream. Enjoyed talking with you all. Certainly reach out to me if I can help you in any way. Cyberfox.com if you're looking to solve your challenges in privilege and identity management. Empath Cyber, if your MSP is looking to grow in cybersecurity and kind of figure out how do we get through this whole journey, would love to have you in on that. Lauren, thank you. So you said you saw the event. I don't know if you were able to watch it, but if you did and you were on it, really appreciate that. That was awesome. It was a whole lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. So, all right, my friends, I think I am out for the day. I'm out for the weekend. If you're still watching this, go tell your boss that Wes Spencer said you are ready to pack your bags and leave for the weekend and get it started and get it going. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you soon, my friends. Thank you so very much.